My personal heroes are few, but they're very large. Carl Sagan was a good friend. Isaac Asimov was close to me in many ways. Martin Gardner was a minor god of mine. If you don't know anything about Martin Gardner, look him up. Richard Feynman and I exchanged many useful thoughts over the years. In the UK, Sir John Maddox was my good friend, and Richard Dawkins has supported me, and you folks know Richard Dawkins, and the James Randi Educational Foundation in many ways, but our heroes should be far more abundant. Now, lest you get any notion that this dependence upon nonsense is new to this generation, let me read you a quotation. 59 wise words written by Thomas Carlyle, Scottish philosopher, satirical writer, essayist, and teacher, a prominent historian who in the year 1881, even I wasn't alive then, that's much more than a century ago, but nonsense has been with us for a very long time. Thomas Carlyle wrote, and I quote, "Heroes have gone out, quacks have come in. The reign of quacks is not ended with the 19th century. The scepter is held with a firmer grasp. The empire has a wider boundary. We are all the slaves of quackery in one shape or another. One portion of our being is always playing the successful quack to the other." Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are now, it seems, reliving a very bad aspect of our own history. We should learn from that, and we should put an end to it. And for a very kind attention to my words, I thank you sincerely.
There's I know there's folks going to line up for questions. You went after homeopathy at one point.
Oh, yes. Gladly and vigorously.
It's one of the many things that I find in this New Age rhymes with sewage woo stuff, to quote you.
Indeed.
That people just look at and say, oh, it's no big deal. You know, what's it hurting? Well, you know, I guess if you had plenty of water, it's not hurting too much.
Well, homeopathy is based upon an idea from a quack from many years ago, who came up with the idea that if you dilute a medicine down to, listen to this, listen to the figures now, literally tens of billions of parts of water to 1 part of medicine. There's a thing called Avogadro's limit. And at that limit, it means there is either only 1 molecule or atom of the original substance left, or there are none whatsoever. That is so far beyond Avogadro's limit that in all of the pills that you buy that are labeled homeopathic or liquid medicines like Zicam and a few other things like that, very popular on all pharmacist shops, you'll find them in every country, you are getting 0 doses of medicine. I don't mean small doses, I mean 0 doses of medicine. There is none of the original molecule or atom that was mixed into the substance years ago. It's like filling this auditorium, literally this auditorium, and dissolving 1 aspirin at 325 milligrams in it, stirring it up, and then taking a few drops of that and throwing it into another tank at the same size. Come on. Homeopathy consists of 0 doses of medication. 0.
It's one of those things. So from the science point of it, it seems obvious. And yet when you hear talk about they've got special methods, we need to shake it this way and shake it that way. And
10 times this way, and literally, and 10 times that way.
And it's because the 2 things that are the foundations of it are that like cures like, which is something that nobody's ever demonstrated other than it sounds interesting. You know, this will cause you to go to sleep, so we'll use it to cure insomnia. But the other aspect of this is that water has a memory. You know, a memory.
Yeah.
And somebody pointed out that it doesn't seem to remember all the poop that's been in it.
Yes, that's very true, too. Yeah, and other substances we won't get into.
But I mean, if water had a memory, you'd be able to take something like this, and it would just stay there.
But that can't be done.
That can't be done.
No.
Because water doesn't have a memory. There's a question over on this side. We'll go ahead and get started and take some questions. Thanks for waiting.
Yeah, hi. Many years ago, you were very successful in getting rid of one charlatan by the name of Uri Geller, who...
Uri is the right pronunciation. Always call the devil by his right name. Uri Geller, yes.
Now, I've noticed, being a magician myself, he's been trying to insinuate himself into the magic community in the last couple of years.
Yes.
But I was just wondering if you had any further meetings with him in the last little while?
Well, not recently, but I found some very interesting news. He and his entire family suddenly, about a few months ago, moved back to Israel. And I have two very good Israeli friends who both wrote me on the internet within an hour of one another saying, it's in all the news, he's living back in Israel, and neither one of us can figure out why, because no one in Israel believes his stories. They laugh at Uri Geller, they make jokes about Uri Geller, they know he's a phony. What is he doing back in Israel? And I'd like to know the answer to that too, because he gave up a very, very expensive home in England, a whole estate, and he just suddenly moved out, and the whole family is back in Israel. If any of you know the answer, see me afterwards.
And I'd like to state for the record, I'm not making any statements about Uri Geller because I don't have enough money for him to come after me with his lawyers. So it just wouldn't...
Oh, he has sued me 20 times over the years. 20 times, never won a penny. Never won a penny, but he had to pay out some huge fines of a couple of $100,000 because he didn't pay up his lawyers and whatnot. So he's lost money on me.
He wouldn't need the money if he'd learned how to unbend those spoons.
That's true. That's very true.
Is there a question over on that side?
Yeah, I was wondering if there are any interesting challenge or attempts at the $1 million challenge recently.
Oh, yes, many, but we can't talk about them because you see, if we warn them, then they run for the woods, and we want them to sit still on a stage and be questioned. You've got to face up to the... But there are interesting claims coming, I can assure you. Offering money for something as stupid as what we're doing is embarrassing. It is embarrassing to me, I must say, personally, to see these people coming out on the stage at any of the meetings that we hold for the James Randi Educational Foundation, which we do from time to time, and they come out on stage and they are the most amazed of all that the thing failed. But then when we talked to them afterwards, we found out how they did the test, and they made excuses all the way through the test. Oh, it didn't work that time, but it usually works much better. They don't know what they're doing. They're not scientific, they're not logical, they're not rational and logical about the thing at all.
We'd spoken earlier about Ray Hyman.
Ray Hyman?
Well, and others, where I have this question, that, because I'm going to attempt to read minds, but I'm not convinced that I can actually read minds all the time. And yet we see these people who may begin as frauds, but then become convinced that they have some real ability. Yes. The reason I think that happens is because they were never given the tools of skepticism and critical thinking to not that it's going to make you immune. I guarantee you, all of you are going to be fooled and make foolish, establish foolish beliefs, no matter how skeptical you try to be. The goal is to minimize that and minimize the damage and to be open to interacting with others.
They tend to remember when they hit the right answer.
Yes.
And they preach it to everybody, and they can't stop talking about it. But they forgot about the 40 times in between when they missed altogether. Yeah. Selective thinking.
On this side?
Hi, I'd like to thank you guys for coming here. It's been a great evening so far. I'd like to, when I was a kid, I first started learning magic tricks, and I think it affected my life. What do you guys think about encouraging kids to take part in magic and learn tricks in order to promote skepticism?
Well, I think it's a good idea myself, but we should refer to it as conjuring, you see, because it isn't really magic, remember that. And teach the kids that too. And teach them also to have a good sense of what they should be saying and not saying. And if they had a magic show with saying, what you've seen is a series of tricks. I'm very happy to have your applause, and I thank you for inviting me. Something like that, where they acknowledge that they haven't really done miracles. That's important.
I think I'm in complete agreement. I don't know too much to add other than that I think there's a distinction between finding and developing a passion for conjuring magical arts as a performance, as a passion of yours, and then using it as a teaching tool. I think that there's a great opportunity to teach critical thinking skills in every school and to make use of conjuring tricks and things like that as a tool for that. But I don't necessarily want to, we need to, from the standpoint of the magic community, from what I think of that conjuring community, I want to find new blood to come in and do the sort of shows that I love. And for that, you have to find a passion. So there's two different things. There's one is use it as a tool to educate. And one of the big things, which I stress over and over, is I've done a lecture or two
Thank you.
on magic and skepticism. And one of the key things is that people will come up after I've done a particular effect, and they'll say, how'd you do that? And I don't tell them. And there's a reason I don't tell them, and it has absolutely nothing to do with a conjurer's code or keeping the secret or anything like that. It's very simple. Because if I tell you exactly how I did it, you now know how I did it. And now you think that you know how it's done. And those two things are very different. Because the way he does it might be completely different. If he can convince you that he's not using the trick that you learned from me, he may be able to convince you that he is in fact a wizard, which he is.
And your performance is forgotten about. Do I have time to?
Absolutely. You have as much time as you want. We'll cut into everything.
Oh, don't ever say that to me. That's very dangerous talk.
The guy who talks more than anybody is telling you, please, please.
Could we have the house lights up? Would that be difficult to ask for? Ah, look at that. A miracle. I just asked for it, and
let there be light.
No question of that. Now, I must tell my audience this, that earlier I spoke to a young lady that I met as she was coming in to this audience, and she's someplace in the audience. Where are you? There you are. Okay, in the balcony, so we can see you better. Now, I'm going to, you don't have to come down or anything. I'm just going to step over to the board here for a minute. Whoops, sorry. I'll be okay. I think. All right. Now, I asked this young lady, it was a real estate book, I believe, was it?
I think it was like a Visit Canada book.
What, I'm sorry?
Visit Canada tourist guide type book?
Oh, okay, all right. And I asked you to name a page, right, any number. I gave you the number of pages of the book, and I asked you to turn to that page, and I stood well away from you, and your companion there watched me carefully, and I had my back turned to the table, and there was nobody looking over your shoulder or anything like that. I simply asked you to look away from the page and run your finger around like this and stop any place at all. And the only provision I made was, I said, don't take a word like but or and or something like that. They're very dull words. But I asked you to take some other word from there that would be significant, okay? And now I must tell you, I must admit to you, my experience in doing this demonstration is no one ever takes a 5 or 6 letter word. They always take 20-letter words if they can find them. But I don't know. I'm going to make an attempt. I'm going to step over to the board here, and I'll turn away from you so that I don't pick up any body clues, because if I'm doing it correctly, you'll be going, and if I'm doing it wrongly, you'll be going like this, you see. So I won't look at you at all, but I'm going to step over to the board here. Now, I could not have seen the word that you rested your finger on, right? And you do remember the word, though. See, if you don't remember the word, I say, the word was so-and-so, and she says, I don't know, I forgot. I really hate that, you see, but you do remember the word. Okay. Have you told your companion? Okay. All right. I made it. That's the toughest part of the whole trick, is getting the top off. Now, I'm going to stand here. Okay. Don't say anything, please, and don't react in any way at all. This doesn't make any sense so far. Okay. Well, oh, goodness. No, this is not making any sense. No question of that. Do you know a word that goes like that?
I don't speak
Help me.
Canadian.
Oh, okay. Wait, there's a bracket over here of some kind. Don't tell me if I'm right or wrong now. Gee. No, this is ridiculous. No, like this. I'll write it up here again. Oh, gee. So forget this one here. Well, I have no idea what a silly word like that could possibly be. Doesn't make any sense to me. Well, just so we'll see. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I sort of sense this. Yeah, sure. At the end of it. Now, you didn't tell anybody what the word was at all. You certainly didn't tell me. That's pretty obvious. Well, I hate to tell you this, but would you tell me, please, what was the word that you chose in the book by running your finger around on it? What? Canadian?
Canadians.
Oh, plural. Oh, I'm glad I put the S at the end then. Et le voilà. Now, and we're not inclusion at all. We had never met before. I just approached you with your gentleman friend there, and I asked if you, and you weren't watched. I had my back to you, and he was watching me, and there was nobody else around who could possibly have seen what happened. It must be a miracle. I think I started to believe. I've just proven it to myself. No, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we call in the trade mentalism. This gentleman is quite an expert on that subject as well, as you will find out, I'm sure, because you can't stop him. But I want you to believe this sincerely, I tell you. These sort of things are tricks. They're done purposely to fool people, but we hope that you take them as entertainment. This is entertainment. This happens to be my own particular invention, this particular trick that I do here, and I have 6 or 8 to my credit. I've never published them, and I've never told anyone how this particular one is done. But I want to thank you very much for your very kind attention. It's been such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, David. Oh my. Oh, God. Thank you.